Hello everybody, this is Loci WayOfLoci and welcome to the No Hit Podcast. Here it is my job to interview the extraordinary people in gaming, the hitless runners who beat difficult games without taking a single hit or point of damage, speedrunners completing games in mere minutes that would normally take hours, or those who have finished games completely blindfolded, or the amazing content creators and developers out there producing the engaging and entertaining content and games that we all enjoy. Today's guest is Shilkey, that's Shilkey on YouTube and Shilkey10 on Twitch. Shilkey is a legend in the hitless community, having completed some of the hardest challenges possible from the FromSoftware games, having beaten every single boss in Dark Souls 1, 2 and 3, including DLC, back to back, a trilogy without getting hit a single time, as well as all bosses hitless runs in Sekiro, Bloodborne and even Elden Ring, and many more runs with various restrictions, all being done hitless. In this conversation we go into the appeal of these runs for Shilkey, some of the standout runs for him, his approach to hitless, as well as the big focus towards low damage challenges, and much more. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Shilkey. Right, Shilkey, first of all, thanks very much for taking time out to come on the podcast today. How are you doing, man?
Thank you for having me. I'm a bit sick, but I'm happy to be here.
Lovely. So we're going to be going into several run specifics, challenges, hitless overall, but I wanted to start before we go into specifics, having done so many of these runs. What is it about hitless, about the challenge that has drawn you to it so much, to having done so many of these difficult runs?
I can't really say exactly what, but it's just very, very addicting to get the run. Basically, it's that I really like.
And what particular part is the addicting? Is it the routine, the improving, the?
No, it's just, well, yes, improving as well, but it's mostly like the feeling of actually getting the run, like at the end of it.
It's like accomplishing it kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And what sort of kicked it all off? Like, what was the first inspiration or the first couple of runs, so to speak?
Well, I first played Dark Souls in 2020 during the summer. It was COVID, and so yeah, I played through them because I was very bored because we were all at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I didn't touch it for like a few months, and then I went on Twitch and I saw Hob. That he was doing it. I was like, I know this game. I know Dark Souls. I played it recently, and I watched him do like the God Run 2, I think. And I was like, I really want to do this. I want to try this. This looks fun. And so after that, I just I started with Dark Souls 2 because it's always been my favorite. And I started doing the any percent there. But after a while, I got kind of bored with it, and then I just started doing all bosses instead.
How was that first experience, that first run through, like for your first game? I know everyone has a different approach or a different experience. I know my first was Sekiro, and it was a mixed experience, let's say.
Yeah, it was, because it was such a long run, right? It was like almost 10 hours. It really, really felt like grind. Yeah.
So it was, the DS2, the first run was an all bosses run?
Yeah. I started out doing the any percent, and I got to the end. I don't know how well you know Dark Souls 2, but Valstat.
Yep.
I got around there once, I think. That was the furthest I got, and I was like, I really don't want to do all this any percent stuff only again. So then I just started doing all bosses, because there was not many people had done it, and there was like someone called Lone Wind. He made like a guide of an exact route, and I was like, this looks fun. I'll just do this instead. And it ended up being like almost 10 hours. So that was really a long grind.
I was just thinking that is a pretty mad jump to go, because I mean the DS2 any percent is long, quote unquote, being about 2 and a bit hours. I think they might have shortened it if with recent routing, but that's a bit of a jump going from 2 hours to a 10 potentially plus hour run, isn't it?
Yeah. Actually, I was for a while. I even tried to do it as a 1, but I was like, no, this is not happening. And then I just did a level 1.
And how long did that take from like the initial routine, go through the guide, learn yourself? Like, what was the timeline? Oh wow, speedy. So it's interesting. Go on.
So, yeah, it's just really helpful that there was a guide. I followed it almost like to the dot. Like I changed a couple bosses here and there, but I basically just followed the route, so I didn't really have to route it myself.
What was the first run? Maybe they've routed yourself, but maybe the one you put a lot of your own strats into then? Was that soon after?
That was so. At first, I did DS2, and then I did DS1, and then I did DS3. After that, I decided that I wanted to go for DS2 all bosses, no upgrades. So that was like, and nobody had done that. So that was like I had to plan a lot of stuff by myself, like everything from scratch, basically. That was a very big one for me, and I was super proud and happy to get it.
Because would you be able to? Because the thing people may be aware of, like a normal Dark Souls run, you would go through, you would level up, you would improve your weapon, and Hitless is obviously a difficult challenge, but there are strategies in order to like get very overpowered in certain runs in any percent, and then SO1, which is still level 1, which is no leveling. That's even harder because there are still damage ways with your weapon, but in terms of stamina or health or strength, you can't go further. But could you explain a bit how no upgrades and in other games, no infusions, how that's like a step extra as well?
Like, do you mean for any game in specific, or?
We'll start with Dark Souls 2 for now. I think we've got a few options though, haven't we?
Yeah. It's just well, maybe because like doing a leveled one is not like a level no upgrades is not a huge step, I would say, because there are some weapons like in most of the games that are like kind of equivalent to a leveled weapon. In multiple games it's like this, so that's not a huge step, I would say. But going to ASO 1, especially in Dark Souls 2, is really a huge step, mostly because of the iframes. You barely have any in DS2, so you really have to time your dodge as well. So yeah, damage is pretty okay, actually. Like, it's a lot more than you would expect. Like, it's like, I don't know, it's quite close to a leveled run. It's just basically the iframes that makes it really hard.
Yeah, for people who are not aware, in DS2, they did what I consider to be a weird approach. There is a stat called adaptability, I think it is. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Shilkey.
Well, yeah, there is adaptability, but it's not really, like, a lot of people think that that's like the only thing that changes this, but it's actually something called agility.
Okay.
So adaptability increases your agility and gives you more iframes. But there's also another stat that increases your agility, which is attunement. So there's two. So it's basically agility that matters.
Okay, and is that a stat you can see on the menu? I hadn't actually heard of it. I just thought it was always adaptability.
Yeah, you can see it on the menu.
Interesting. Does that mean is there also potential armor then that increases that stat separately as opposed to stats, or?
Yeah, there are a few pieces which I would say are kind of necessary if you want to do all bosses in SL1. So there's some farming involved. Sometimes quick, sometimes very slow. But yeah, there are some peasants you can farm for like an extra iframe. There are some other items. There's also a ring and a ladle, a weapon, and a shield that you can have. You can increase your iframes until, I don't remember the exact one. Maybe it's like 7 iframes. No, or 8 maybe. Yeah.
And so went from DS1, DS3, and so what was the next big run you would say after the DS2 all bosses that you'd consider?
I would say that was probably Dark Souls 3, as a one no upgrades, all bosses.
How was that experience? Just from personally having played the games and doing a bit of no hit between them, DS3 is a lot more faster paced and a lot more boss centric in terms of for the run. Like,
for sure.
So how was that change up from the DS2?
Well, so I started with any percent, and I think that took me like 3 weeks. That felt like really difficult. The bosses, like you said, the bosses, it's very boss centric. Like the bosses felt almost impossible for me after, because I had gone to DS2 and I had basically almost forgotten how to play DS3 at that point. And like the bosses felt so difficult, and I was thinking that it was impossible. So that was my experience with the any percent. But after a while, then I got the all bosses quite a bit faster, because I got into it, I guess. But and in general, I think like the any percent is actually a bit more difficult, probably. But yeah, it was really tough at the start. So like I remember, sir. I remember that especially DSA and Princess, like I was thinking that it was impossible, like really hard. I I remember I did like a baseline and I had like 15 hits on each. It was really hard, but it was also very fun. I really like DSA. Very fun run. One of my favorite runs.
Yeah, they are. The bosses are difficult. I find them a lot of them difficult, but they are very fun to learn. Like I found with some Elden Ring bosses, after like trying them on low damage or try and do them hitless, you get an appreciation of their move set a bit more than at least I did in like the first playthroughs, especially in some DS3 bosses.
For sure, I agree. There are some bosses that are very fun individually.
So just briefly going on to those last couple of runs you mentioned, just because the timelines, saying like the DS2 being a month and the DS3 any percent being 3 weeks, this I would say is quite fast in terms of getting these difficult runs. What sort of approach do you take? It may be different now because obviously you've got a lot more experience doing these runs now, but what was your approach back then to learn the runs? And then if it has changed, what would you do different nowadays?
I think the most important thing is, well, obviously practice. You have to practice the bosses. Very important.
Mm-hmm.
Practice them on low damage. That's like the main thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
I think. But also to watch other people fight the bosses. There are a lot of like challenge kills on YouTube that you can watch. You can see
Mm-hmm.
all the punishes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is super important, I would say. Like fight them with low damage. That's super important. And also to do full runs of the game, because
Okay.
I see a lot of people do this. They like reset at the start for like an hour or two. But I think that if you do the full run, like you'll see all these small mistakes and you'll know what you need to fix instead of like discovering it later, like when you're actually on the run. So I think these two things are super important. Practicing bosses, look at other people, the three things, and do full runs. These are like big. That's my approach basically.
It's funny, I'm hearing that quite consistently doing the full runs. I recently spoke with Hey Blasty and Nuclear Pastor Tom, and both broached upon this topic of doing full runs. The fact that, especially with Hitless, where it can be when you're in that 1 PB hell, for instance, where you feel like you're just at that step of getting the run, and you may say just an example, like a 2 hour run. We'll stick with DS2, and you do the first hour over and over and over again, and you keep resetting it because you know you've got that run in you. You just needs that right bit of luck or right wind to be blowing, but that can make you rusty on the back half. Even if you can do each split perfectly, like you say, there are those nuances or those random occasions that you may not have experienced just because you're spending so much time in that early game.
Exactly. And there's, as we all know, there's a lot of memes in the game
Yeah.
that you need to basically get hit to know about. So it helps you discover all of these things.
Hitless is mainly a game of making mistakes and learning from them.
Yeah.
So why the focus on low damage practice?
Because like you really get to see the moveset of the boss. You really get to know the boss completely. Whereas like if you had high damage, you might like almost skip a phase or like die super fast. It's just not enough practice, I would say. Like even if you say like, oh, I'll do this. This is what I used to do. I did like, oh, I'll do this boss hitless 5 times, like with normal damage, and like I quickly discovered that that's not really enough. Like I need to see the boss. I need to know everything the boss can do. To be consistent, basically.
I think a quick example I can at least give from experience was DSA, that when I was doing the like normal any percent and you've got some overpowered twin blades, you can sort of rush through it and be confident, but if a single routing or single thing goes wrong, then second phase can be an absolute pain with the meatballs flying around.
For sure. Like I remember, I think in my first DS3 All Bosses run, there is a strat where you can like kind of skip phase 2. You just nuke him down basically with a certain amount of dex. So I was like basically just praying that it wouldn't go into that it would kill him there. And that's not, I learned later that like that doesn't really work. You should always have a backup, I would say.
And with that, doing the low damage and knowing the bosses more than just the quote-unquote rooted strats. So just following a guide, I think I've talked about this previously, but just following a guide, you don't see all the mistakes the guide maker has made in learning that setup for a boss or just the boss itself. So a lot of that learning can come from making the mistakes, as we mentioned.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's one thing in order to learn bosses like inside and out. In terms of, because obviously there's two sides of a hitless run. There is the running sections and the bosses themselves. And was interested in what do you constitute as a safe split or one you can like tick off? Do you do it like 3-5 times in a row, or is there some other measure you think of going, okay, I can include this in the run?
I probably like, I don't know, something like 5 times until I get hit. Like if I do it like 5 times like in a row, I'm like, okay, this is fine. And then eventually I get hit there, and then I'll have to change it. That's usually how it goes. I eventually get hit there, and then I change it.
Memes occur.
Yeah, or something that I didn't know. Like, for example, there is Cathedral in DS3. So I've changed the way I do Cathedral, I don't know, like 15 times. Because I always get hit in some new way. Yeah, so there's things like this. Like you don't really know until maybe you do it like 50 times, and then you get hit doing that thing. So it's like, yeah, I'll say probably like 5 times and then just do it until I get hit.
I think the main reason I asked that is because some of your runs are so long. I mean, the first one we talked about was 10 hours, and you have several other long, difficult runs that I do wonder, because like a reset at like 3, 4, 5 hours in has got to nip a bit, like, to then have to do.
Oh yeah,
so.
for sure.
So,
for sure. It's rough.
Yeah, it's just the curiosity part of being confident in a strat, knowing that 6 hours in, like whilst you're still trying to concentrate and you might be tired, that you still know it's going to be safe. So I think that's sort of where the query is coming from.
Yeah. But yeah, it's still basically the same. Like I just do it until I get hit. And if I get hit that far in, I guess I practice the further it in, maybe I practice a bit more for the running section.
Because my multi-game is separable. Like, say we'll go into a different game, say like a Sekiro or bosses, like with just the sword only stuff or the low damage stuff. Is that also a run that you would go out to completion again and again, even if it's so long, or is that different when it's such a long run?
I would say probably Sekiro is a bit different, because I would say that mostly the running sections are free in that game.
Yeah.
And because doing the full runs is mostly, of course, it's also some boss practice, but it's mostly to see all these things between bosses. So probably in Sekiro is the game where I would sometimes not finish the run, because it's the same. Like you can just go practice the boss.
Just speed through. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be the game that's on the opposite side of that, which is the quote-unquote worst on like the running or routing section?
I would definitely say TS2. Well, it kind of depends if you're doing SO1 or not, because if you're doing a level 1, you have a spell called Yearn, which is really strong. So it makes running sections a lot easier. But if you're doing SO1, I would say that's probably the most difficult one. And very often, like I think I finished when I was doing SO1, I finished like almost every single run, I think. It was really helpful. Like this was like recently, like half a year ago. So like I knew what worked best for me, and I just kept doing the full runs and some boss practice here and there. Felt the best for me.
So if that's the one, if it was leveled, so what's the game that's also on like 80% or normal? Sorry, that worded that a bit weird. So when you have that Yearn, DS2's not too bad. So what's the other game that's then takes the mantle of the worst routing one?
Probably DS3.
Okay.
Maybe Bloodborne. There's quite a lot of difficult running sections in DS3. I would say quite quite scary. Do many times.
So DS3, Bloodborne, in the general sense, they're very linear approaches. You are normally going the same way every time, so you have limited options in how you're going to approach getting through those areas. How was it with something like Elden Ring, one of which you've done a full all bosses run of? How was that with routing? It's because being an open world and having such options to deal with or work with in order to route the whole thing.
Yeah, that was quite an experience actually, routing that thing, because nobody else had done the run. Of course, people had done all bosses. I believe both Bender, Gino, and Banjo had done it at the time. But yeah, that was definitely because I knew basically nothing about the different, the mini bosses, the dungeons, the items, and all that stuff. I knew nothing, so I had some people in chat who basically told me what I needed to know. Some Elden Ring experts, and that really helped. I don't think I would have been able to route this without them.
What was like step one in for such a run? Because I think, is there 165 bosses in Elden Ring around that?
Yeah, 165 in the base game. Well, what I did first, I did the full all bosses run with no upgrades. So
Okay.
then I got to like experience all the dungeons and stuff like that. I think that really helped. It was basically a first playthrough of most of the dungeons. Like the first time I played the game, I basically only went for the major bosses. So
Yep.
that was the first step basically.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I just took it zone by zone, and like I was hoping that people would be in chat to help me.
What is the quickest way to get rid of this assassin in the catacomb?
Yeah.
So no upgrades. So going again back to that experience of doing the bosses low damage, so you're learning these inside and out to have that backup in case a strat or a way you're gonna deal with them later goes wrong.
Yeah, kind of. I kind of felt like it was too many bosses to actually learn. So in the like, I didn't feel like it was. I would probably only do one all bosses run. So I felt like it's not really necessary to learn the bosses that I will basically one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like something fun to do, the low damage.
How do you decide runs out of interest? Because you've done so many, going further and further in each of the signatures from software games. So pretty much any percent low damage all the way to an all bosses, pretty much of all of them. How do you decide which one to go to next or which one to do to next?
It's different. Sometimes I just think of something that I want to do, but and sometimes like I'm kind of like lost. I don't know what I want to do, and then I just go and look at the world first page, and I see which runs have been done for like any percent, and I start thinking, can this be done all bosses? Or maybe I'll try it all bosses. This kind of thing.
Expand it out.
Yeah, and yeah, basically that's. Because I like one of the things that like push me to the new runs is like I like to see like the community as a whole like to do more new runs, like, you know, cover more. I don't know what to say, you know what I mean, like it's like to cover more ground, I guess. You know. So that's one of the things that like I want to see something be done like all bosses, and so I try to do it.
Yeah, so in hitless runs, especially in some any percent runs or even certain low damage runs, there is normally set routes. So give an example like Elden Ring, there is 2 decent weapons, the Serpent Hunter and the Iron Balls. These, if you're just starting in hitless, these are normally the sort of routes you go towards. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is expanding the routing, the different weapon types, like seeing what else in the game to make things different kind of approach, and learning more about how you can make more use of the game rather than just repeating the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, and also include more bosses.
Yeah. Are we doing some like weapon only or weapon specific only for Elden Ring, and like the Dragon Communion stuff or the Dragon Cult stuff or Frenzy Flame? And it's fun because you experience the game in a different way, learning movesets or bosses or areas of the game you hardly ever visit, just doing, I guess, a casual playthrough, or if you're doing even a speed run or just a standard 80% route of a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's interesting to see like the different, some strats or some bosses may change completely, some running sections may change a lot, and some things might not be possible with one type of restriction. It's very interesting, I think, to find new strats for these things.
Just going off there, some that might not be possible. Are there any examples that come quickly to mind of ones you've experienced like that?
Something that might not be possible. Sorry, I think you cut out a bit.
No, you just mentioned there with certain restrictions that some bosses may not be possible. I'm just wondering if there has been any bosses like that you've come across whilst doing your runs, if that comes from experience or...
Not bosses, but running sections.
Okay.
Well, it is possible now, but an example is when I did sorcery only in DS2. Basically, there's Frigid Outskirts.
Lovely place.
There. Yes, exactly. Basically, I would say that it's, I don't know, really, really hard to consistently kill these things with sorcery. Like, they have like almost undodgeable attacks. So like the thing that I did at the time, I took some very slow 20-minute strat to like not aggro a single reindeer. So this was something that I had to come up with some way to do this, and someone suggested this way. So kind of things like this, like might not. That's the example that comes to mind, I guess. But now there's a different strat. You can just run a specific path, and
they
you
just don't
aggro
bother you.
anything. Yeah, you can basically avoid their aggro in a very fast way. It takes like 2 minutes. But yeah, this was 4 years ago almost. So.
Good. God, I need to learn that just for casual playthroughs to not have to deal with them.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I think it was Ritual, the DS2 player, who discovered it. It's very consistent, very nice. You just run and you don't aggro anything.
I mean, the area is such a meme that it's like still known nowadays, even with like everything recently. So
yeah, it's terrible.
Again, just touching on what we were just saying about the low damage approaches to bosses. Do you have any? I mean, you've got 6-7 games to choose from, so it might be quite a lot to think about. But is there any standouts for you in terms of once you've learned a boss, low damage, that you've gone to appreciate a lot more? Just an example, like for myself, when I was doing, I don't know if you've played the Elden Ring DLC.
I have. Yeah.
Okay. When I played through it casually, I really enjoyed Bale, and I still enjoy Bale now, but it was only when learning like low damage stuff and Hitless stuff that I really appreciated the Mesmer fight. Like I really like that fight just because I spent so much time learning it, and was interested if there was you had any similar experiences in any of the Souls games after learning them, no damage or low damage or...
I have one that is one of my favorite bosses that I absolutely hated and even cheesed on my first all bosses run, which is Osiris.
Okay. DS3.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of my favorite bosses now. And like I really, because I ended up doing it like some SO1 fists only on it for practice. And I just really started liking the fight a lot. But I absolutely hated it before. So I think Osiris grows on you.
I shall take the word. I've gone that's one that has wrecked me too many times. So there might be a bit of salt talking for that one.
Understandable.
Speaking of that though, into like SO1 fist only, which I think people may have taken a second listen, a second look to, but also whilst it's audio, so a second listen to. But you've got a few runs like that on your YouTube channel of bosses being done with these like mental restrictions, like NG+7, SO1, just these boss fights that are taking 20, 30, some have seen like 40 minutes plus. How would you like maintain concentration? I think because that's, I guess, once you've learned the boss to that extent and that well, you know the boss inside and out, but how do you maintain that concentration for that long?
I think it's something you learn, I guess. Like the more like you do these long kills, you get more used to it, and then like the focus just stays. Like at the start, I was not able to do things like this. I wasn't able to focus that long in a fight. But like after a while, after practicing a boss, I'm noticing, I'm not getting hit. I may as well record, basically like that.
Yeah, just to scroll through my notes now, and just let people know there is a 51-minute Dragon Slayer armor fight on Shilkey's channel of a fist only. So fair play.
I think my longest one is Ishin. It's like an hour and 7 minutes.
Oh wow, okay. Well, okay. So I imagine that's like AP1, Demon Bell, Charmless. I don't know if there's any other restrictions that you can put on Sekiro.
NG+7, yeah, all of that.
Oh yeah, NG+7. Holy. I mean, with the parry system, I imagine you got to get like tendonitis or something in the finger or something.
For that specific kill, I remember I really hated that fight, but I had done every single fight, like other major boss fight, and I was just trying to force this one to get like the complete run. And I remember I was like falling asleep during the first and second phase because I like almost started nodding. It's extremely boring, but yeah, not the best experience.
I don't know how best to describe this. I think I felt ill when watching your Soul of Cinder no roll fight after like spending so much time. So yeah, that is what it sounds like. The Soul of Cinder final boss fight for DS3 beaten. I think this like the standard hallmark is like NG+7 and SO1 everything without rolling. And I can only describe it as it made me sick watching that after getting wrecked by him so much.
I have a lot of hours on in there.
where did that even spring from? Was it just the morning of, oh, you know what I'll do today? I'll try it in a roll.
Yeah, well, it's like a lot of people say that it's the most challenging one, so I kind of wanted to challenge myself to do it, I guess. And there's a lot of resources on it. Like there's even an entire guide written for solos in the no roll. Like it's like I don't know, 30 pages.
Oh wow.
So, that definitely helps. It's a very complex boss, and it is my favorite boss, so it felt right.
Yeah, I think he is a standout for a lot of runners, both casual and challenge runners, because he's one that, at least until recently, I found out that he doesn't really have a sort of cheese or method to rush the fight. Of course, you can get to like 99 stats and rinse through him, but it's normally a fight you cannot throw him off a cliff or get him caught on something or something similar. Most people just have to learn the fight straight up, so to speak.
Yeah, that's why DS3 is so tough, right? Like it's like probably the hardest 80%. Like, and you have the hardest part at the end. It's really, really tough.
Yeah, because so many of the boss fights you just have to learn in a sense. Some there is quote unquote cheeses like Pontiff with the parry strat, which it isn't a cheese because it's a mechanic, but does make the fight pretty simple-ish. But a lot of the fights is just you just learn it. You just have to learn it. There's no ins or outs here.
For sure.
But that makes the DS3 like one of the most interesting ones, at least I personally find.
Yeah, I agree. Like learning the bosses are definitely the best in the whole series, I would say. Definitely the best bosses.
Do you have any stands out for the DLC? Because that's an area that I've not done challenge runs into. I did the 90% for a good bit, but never really delved into the DLC. So any stands out for those?
I really, really like Demon Prince. Not so much the first phase. In Hitless runs, low damage is mostly running in circles. But the actual the main boss is very fun, I would say. But it has so many good bosses though, like Demon Prince, here, Gale, like all of them are good. Of course, it has the worst boss, but yeah.
Oh, not Grave Tender. What's
Half-Light? Yeah.
Half-Light, yeah, that's it. The NPC boss in before Gale.
Yeah. Luckily, we can cheese Half-Light in most runs, at least.
Oh yeah, is it Poison Mist or something like behind the pillar or something like that?
Yeah. Usually we get a pharma staff called Storyteller staff, but you can also use Poison Mist. Either work.
Yeah, I remember speaking to different people about in Elden Ring, like NPC boss fights are a huge pain in some runs because of how random they can be.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when I played the DLC, and I would say almost like 50% are NPC bosses. I noticed.
Yeah, there is quite a lot.
So many.
Oh, and some there's one in particular that comes to mind. The big one that people think of is like Leda, like for the final fight before Radahn. But big one that comes to mind. Is that the one
that summons something?
Yeah, at the end. So Leda summons her troop, and you can have your summons as well.
Yeah, that one.
But one that comes to mind is one called Dancer of Rana, one with like twin blades, and she input reads so much, so you can like roll, attack, pretty much do anything, and she'll immediately roll away from you. It's such a annoying.
I think I remember that vaguely, actually, that it was just input read like literally everything. I actually have a vague memory of this in one of the tomes or whatever it was.
Like I can't remember what they're called, like the mausoleums. Like there's a northern, eastern, western one, like around the place.
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
in one of those. Secondly, I remember her because she has this fire attack that basically just one shot me, so that also made me a bit salty. And it's so hard to focus on because you focus on specific runs, so that's why I've been speaking in more of a general sense, because you have so many that it's hard to just focus on one and talk about one when there's like a million others that could go into. But I think a big one I do want to talk about is your Trilogy all bosses, and just what was the timeline in terms of idea to practice, to implement, to start doing runs for that? And I should state, so Trilogy, so that's Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, all bosses, including DLCs.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I just had to add on the end. The timeline for that.
Yeah, that one, that was the run that took me longest, and it was quite I'll explain. Well, from the start, I'll start from the start. Since I hadn't played the DS1 in like over a year or something, so the start of it was just me running DS1 over and over and over again until I got used to it again. So in the end, I think I had gotten DS1 hitless like 15 or more times because I just ran it all the time because it was my worst game. But yeah, in total, I think in total it took me like 3 months to get it. But I had this like, I don't know, 2 months in or so. I got to the end, to the second last boss, and then I messed up and got hit.
Okay.
Like at the end, that was like over 12 hours in.
Who was that
that,
on? Out of interest?
that was on the Twin Cats in DS2.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so basically then I took a break from it for like a month. I didn't stream for a month. That was really rough. That hits. It was just like it's like me whiffing like 4 hits and then dying because yeah, it was, yeah. So that was really rough. But a month later, I got back to it, and then yeah.
So we mentioned it briefly at the start about the addicting aspect of like completing these runs. Is that what brings you back or keeps you on these runs to complete them, or?
Yeah, pretty much. And also the community, like the people that are there in chat and like in the Discord. It's I don't know, it motivates me a lot.
Yeah, I think it's always got to be mentioned for people who may not be. I mean, everyone knows this community around every sort of challenge run, whether it's hitless, whether it's speed running, whether it's others. There's always like-minded people who may not be doing the runs or maybe doing the runs. But there's also the route checkers, the glitch hunters. There's always like people, a lot of runs, although individuals may get the runs and and some runs are self-routed themselves like fully, but a lot of stuff is very community run. If I'm not really explaining this well, but I think you know what I mean.
No, I agree. Like my Elden Ring is a perfect example of that. Like people who don't really run much, like they know everything about Elden Ring, and they help me so much. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. I agree completely.
So similar to the boss question I asked earlier about having like spent so much time with like low damage, that's which bosses like stand out. Having done so many long runs of various degrees and difficulties, do you have a standout game that you really enjoy going back to and doing more runs on?
Several, I would say.
Okay.
Like Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and DS2 probably are actually my favorite ones around them. Probably because DS3 and Bloodborne has the best bosses, I would say. So it really makes me want to run those games a lot. DS2, as we know, does not really have good bosses. But
what are you
it's
talking
just. But DS2 is just like, if you ask me to tell me why it's my favorite game, I can't tell you. It's something about it that I just really like, both casually and challenge running. It's just, I enjoy it. Maybe it's the tools available. There's some charm with the game. I don't know, but I know not many people think this, but yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy DS2. I've seen the flame wars around the game, but I don't really get involved with it. I enjoy it as it is, and yeah. Anyway, ignoring that's going to probably set something off somewhere, but oh well.
Yeah.
So we've not really touched on Bloodborne, but because we've really touched on the other, I guess, traditional ones, but Bloodborne, although is similar to the Dark Souls, does have a slightly different like combat system set up. Some similarities, obviously, it's the FromSoftware games, but how was that going into like differently from the the DS1 to 3 trilogy, like going into that and doing no hit?
The main thing and the worst thing is the save states.
Oh yeah.
You have to move them to the USB, move to the computer, move back, all this stuff. It just takes forever. Like I don't know, 2 minutes for if you want to change the save state. It's really awful. Other than that, there's also that you jump on the, like, you don't have the normal jump button that you do in the Dark Souls games. You have it like if you tap R2 again. No, sorry, circle. I have it on R2. That's why I said R2. But if you tap circle again, then you jump. So you cannot really sprint and then roll, which is like every time you see someone go from Dark Souls to Bloodborne, you see them jump in fights. That's how it goes. And it takes a lot of getting used to.
Yeah, definitely. If you've ever seen a Shadows or the Nazguls fight, actually, I should be saying it the other way around. I call them the Nazguls that often. It's my first name for them. So the Shadows fight with Yharnam in the forest. If you see so many runners like jumping, it's because of what Shilkey's describing, like the running and then they try to roll, and character decides to do a leap of faith.
Yeah, exactly.
Which the worst part of that is that the jump, as far as I'm aware, has 0 iframes, so that's why you're screwed as soon as it happens.
Yeah, and you basically take double damage or something as well. So.
Oh, does it count as like counter damage then?
Yep. And counter damage is huge in Bloodborne, way more than any other game. So.
Yeah, I've noticed that when you like mistime a roll and you just it's a one shot in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Just touching on what you just said there, that you've changed it to R1. So do you do that with a lot of games, like change the controller configuration?
I have an R2. Basically, I first changed it. So I did like I said before, I did the DS2 bosses run. That game is different because you have a button where you can auto sprint. So It was kind of manageable. Like I didn't have to claw grip because I don't claw grip ever. So that one was manageable. I would just put on the auto sprint and then turn my camera basically. But then I got to the DS1 with ONS and I was like, this is impossible. I need to do something. So I tried clawing and I just couldn't do it. It hurts too much. So then I just bound the roll to R2 and then I kept it like that for every game basically.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how to describe so like claw grips. If you imagine you're holding a controller, for people listening, it's like using, I can't remember what the name is. So you've got your knuckles and then you've got the bones, the joints on your fingers, and like using your index finger to press like on a PS4 controller, like the X, the square, the circle, and then you can use your thumb for like changing the camera. That's what claw grip is. I think you'll be able to sort of understand that.
No, do you claw grip, by the way?
I do for a lot. I got into it from doing Hitless and sort of I struggle to get out of it actually. Well, it doesn't give me jip yet. Maybe it will do one day because I've heard it's a common thing.
Yeah, I heard so as well.
But I'd say I've switched to like it's a weird story. I tried. Have you played Ori before, the Metroidvania game?
I haven't, no. I know of it, though.
I'd recommend it. It's great. But the reason to bring it up is because on Steam, the PS4 controller, which I've always used, doesn't mix well with it. Like the controls are just absolutely messed up. So I had to get an Xbox controller. So in order to play that, and then my PS4 broke. So now I've just been playing Xbox for the rest of it. And there may be a claw grip for it, but it does not work well for me. So I had to go back to it. So my hands are saved for the time being.
The Xbox layout.
Yeah, exactly. So my hands are saved for the time being from the claw grip.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I prefer the Xbox controller because sometimes, very, very rarely, I would claw grip on the left side with the items and stuff. And then I could still like kind of move with the Xbox controller, but then I had to go to the PS5 controller because I was doing Bloodborne and stuff, and then it all got very annoying.
Do you have a preference between them all, or
the controllers?
Yeah,
the Xbox one is what I prefer.
Xbox first, okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting used to it. I never had an Xbox, but I'm enjoying it so far. Maybe one thing out of necessity because I don't have another one, but it's going well. So, what to talk about? I don't know how to, probably best described as non-standard runs, and to give a couple of examples, a Bloodborne torch only hitless run. I should say that all these are hitless runs, by the way, like anything that we've mentioned in this chat, and a Dark Souls 3 consumables only run, which that sounds like effort.
Yeah. I have some funny stories about that one. You know Yorm, right? Yorm, you don't have enough consumables to kill Yorm, like in your inventory. So I basically had to clear the path back to the bonfire 2 times, I think, so that I could rest there. I would first put like knives and everything at the fog gate, like the entrance to the fog gate, because then you can pick them up from inside. So and then I'd clear the path, go sit at the bonfire, stock up, go back down, and then drop them again and go back up and then drop them again.
Oh, so you've got like a max replenish on the bonfire, but then you can pick up additional like as you're walking, like so you've got enough going in.
Like you can like, as long as you sit down on the bonfire, if you don't warp or you don't bone or anything, like the items on the ground will stay there. So you go and rest, get some more, and then go back and put them at the fog gate over and over again.
But yeah, this says exactly what it is. So it's like fire bombs, black fire bombs, kookaries, like to going through everything just using those.
Yeah.
When did that sort of like non-standard I mean, we talked a bit earlier when you were saying like you enjoy like going outside of like the standard field. I'm guessing that was sort of the case of going, okay, what's some weird runs, what's some non-standard stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think there's also like, people who joke about it in chat. They're like, oh, when are you gonna do consumables only? And then that also gives me ideas. So it might have been from there. It might have been from, I think DS2 has the consumables only run. Maybe I saw it there and I was like, oh, maybe I can do this and use something like that probably. I'm not really sure why I started doing that, but
It's fun. Things can be on a whim as well. Could be just like what the interest lies into it. So having done so many, what does a run have to interest you now? Like in order for you to like look at and go, okay, I fancy trying that.
probably something low damage. I've gotten to the point where I don't really enjoy other things other than low damage because I often really like fighting the bosses. That's like the main thing for me, fighting the bosses. So that's what attracts me, I guess. Pretty much, yeah.
Was you a fan of the gauntlets then, of Sekiro, out of interest? I know it's something a bit different, but
Yeah, I did, but that's like almost like it's too much.
okay.
It's like I need like like a little bit of nothing in between. But I did do the gauntlets for a while. I think I got up to these I think they're called inner bosses a few times, but and they were, I don't know, very difficult, and I don't think I liked them very much, and they were at the end, and I just stopped doing it. It was like too much like a boss kind of thing.
So it's not just a boss rush kind of thing, it's also the case of there has to be that sort of break in between that I enjoy as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I like, I guess the best word to describe it is like solving like running sections. Like sometimes there's an issue and I'll try to find like the best way to run through it. I really enjoy doing that as well.
So what would be your approach? So say you have a running section, I'll let you pick the game, whichever's easiest to explain, that there is something wrong or it's a new route or a new section. What's your approach to testing different stuff or going about finding a way through the potential issue?
I just try everything. Like I remember there was this part in DS2 for the SO1 run before Smelter Demon. I really like I don't know how familiar you are with the stuff before it, but there's a lot of enemies.
All the knights, yeah.
Yeah, all the knights and some clerics and archers and stuff like that. And it's extremely difficult to run through there. Extremely. But I really wanted to do it. So I just kept, like, I probably, like, for 2 or 3 hours, I just tried everything like, to try to come up with a good way to do it. And, like, I just try everything. There's no really specific strategy for finding something out. I just, try different timings, different things. Yeah, trial and error, basically.
And then like we were talking about earlier, the case of eventually there will be a meme and then you sort of have to go from there as well.
Yeah.
What you got a strike on? I'm interested. Do any other games catch your fancy? Because all this has been within like the Souls series. So has other Souls-likes ever caught your attention, like Lies of P, or maybe a completely different genre?
I don't really enjoy games that much, to be honest, which it's funny that I say that because like I don't really play games, and I played like I don't really play other games. I probably would not be able to play these games like casually either much. Like I do it for the challenge runs.
Okay.
Basically. Otherwise I probably wouldn't enjoy it so much. And yeah. I have looked a bit at Lies of P. Like maybe I'll want to play it at some point, but I haven't yet.
That's interesting. So outside of like just these challenge runs, there's not much like casual gaming. It's mainly the getting through the challenge and completing the challenge as opposed to that.
Yeah, exactly. Like of course I enjoyed it the first time, but after that it was like that's why I stopped for like several months, and then I saw Hope, right, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. So it's the challenge, not the game, I guess.
Something catches the fancy and relights the spark kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sort of random tangent, but I was interested because first of all, this might be wrong, but your profile on your YouTube and Twitch and Discord that I can see now is, I believe, from Leon the Professional into it, and I was just
Yeah,
interested
yeah.
how come that profile pitch?
It's just one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
So
I was thinking, but
yeah.
it was for so long when because it came across your I took a hiatus, so it was away for a couple of years. But when I first heard about your runs was a couple of years ago, and for a good while when I saw the profile, I was going, I recognize this, and it took me way too long to realize the film because of the outline. But I can recommend Leon the Professional is a really good film.
Yep.
And if you watch through it, there's a couple of good Gary Oldman memes that you'll realize that, oh, that's from this film. But anyway, tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah, the everyone scene is just like flaring in
Yeah,
my mind right now.
exactly. The bathroom scene. Yeah, he's really good in that one.
It's quite a while ago now. Was it 80s or earlier maybe?
94, I think.
Okay, fair enough. A bit earlier, but 1 minute time flies. Anyway, sorry, tangent again. But I think Shilkey will go into some quick questions, then probably wrap up if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect. So I want to ask, if you had one piece of advice for someone new to Hitless running, what would you recommend or that piece of advice be?
To watch other players do the runs, like either on Twitch, on YouTube, ask questions in Discord. That's the number one thing I would say.
From the software great name FromSoftware for this question. From FromSoftware, the games that you've played in Challenge Run, if you could pick any of them to have a sequel to run, obviously Dark Souls is a bit cheating, but because there's like 3 of them, but I think you know what I'm asking, which would you pick?
Probably, yeah, well, obviously it would be Dark Souls 4, but other than that, I would say it's Sekiro, probably.
God, I still wish there was a DLC.
Yeah, I don't know why there isn't. It's very strange.
I'm still, I'm in conspiracy mode still to this day of, do you know in where the second centipede is in, like, the monk place?
Yeah, you mean Senden, right?
Yeah. I am still conspiracy theory believe that like was a fireplace, like a place that you're gonna have an item and interact to go with, like to a past memory or something. I don't know. It just always seemed random. I mean, if they were ever gonna do a DLC, it was probably just gonna be the Buddha statue again, into it to get transported somewhere. But
probably, probably.
I still would have missed opportunity. At least I feel like.
Yeah, and also Bloodborne, like, could also have, like, it has DLC obviously, but like a 2 would be great.
Definitely. Yeah. God, there's been a lot of salt from me this episode. I should apologize a bit because there's been a few bosses and DLC and releases that I've just been like, a bit grumbly about. Maybe hard to pin one down, but do you have a run that you probably describe as like your most hyped or fond one to look back on and like celebrated run?
Maybe, yeah, either Sekiro all bosses, mini bosses, or the Trilogy all bosses, I would say. One of the 2.
How come the Sekiro one's so high up out of interest?
It was just a really tough one. It felt like the hardest one to do, basically, at the time anyway. I felt really proud of it. And then nobody else had done it either. Of course, that's the case with quite a few runs, but still, like, there was something like that's maybe it was because I also had like a moment there where I died on the last boss at, like, Ishin phase 3. Yes, yep. Like you do several like missed ravens and he's like almost dead, like you don't even see the HP almost, and then I run out of like the emblems, and then I couldn't miss raven and I get hit by the lightning, and that was just terrible. So I guess, like, once I managed to do it again, it just felt very good, I guess.
A relief that it's like, okay, you're finally down.
Yeah.
With the Sekiro one, the headless just scared me so much when looking into like the longer runs of that.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting strategy to like loop around, kind
of. I think that shall be good. So, final question I shall ask: what are the future plans of Shilkey?
Don't really have any plans right now. It's for Hitless, so. Well, we shall see. No
worries at all. Most of all, I just appreciate you taking the time out for this, Shilkey. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to do this. I've enjoyed this chat.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Very happy you asked.
No worries at all. Enjoyed it, and hope everyone listening has enjoyed it as well. That shall be that. So hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you for the next episode.
Yeah, bye.
If you enjoyed that conversation and want to hear more with amazing guests, be sure to head over to youtube.com/@nohitpodcast or wayofloci.com/nohitpodcast.